Hello and welcome. My name is Amy and I am here today on behalf of IEEE. IEEE is the world's largest technical professional organization dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. Our virtual event today is entitled, Do This, Not That, Applying Multimedia Learning Principles in Your Online Module or Presentation to Enhance Comprehension. Before we begin, please note a few housekeeping items. You should see various portlets and engagement tools on your screen. Most are resizable and movable, so feel free to adjust them to make the most out of your space. We recommend using a wired internet connection to access today's presentation and closing any programs or browser sessions running in the background that could cause issues. There is no dial-in number for attendees of this event, so please make sure your computer speakers or headset are turned on and the volume is up so that you can hear our presenter. You can find additional answers to common technical issues by clicking on the yellow question mark help tool at the bottom of your screen. Submit any questions for today's presenter via the purple Q&A icon. We will answer as many questions as time allows. Don't forget to click the teal survey icon to provide feedback on today's event, as well as the yellow certificate icon to request your digital certificate of participation. Finally, the on-demand link for today's event will be emailed to all registrants approximately 2 hours after today's session. If you want to learn more about other educational events and resources from IEEE, click the IEEE Education Week icon. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to our presenter, Kayla.
Thank you, Amy, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my session today about how to apply multimedia learning principles in your online module or presentation to enhance audience comprehension. In this session, I will focus on the application part, in which I will showcase some of our code sample from our IEEE Learning Library. We will also have a couple of exercises for you to apply these principles right away. Before we start, let me introduce myself a little bit. I am an instructional designer with IEEE Educational Activities. I work with professors and industry experts around the world to create online courses that are designed for working professionals in engineering fields. My research interests include educational technology, especially virtual reality for learning, educational psychology, focusing on self-determination theory, and women in engineering, which to me is about how to make online STEM learning environment more inclusive. I received my PhD in learning design and technology from Purdue University. Prior to joining IEEE, I worked at NYU Tandon School of Engineering for nearly 5 years. So what are multimedia learning principles? This is a set of principles that help instructional designers like me to arrange textual, graphical, video, and audio information for better learning results. It is research proven by a group of scholars led by Richard E. Mayer. And in the early days of my career, I referred to these principles to guide through my instructional design decisions. Let's jump right in. Number 1, coherence principle. We know that people learn better when extraneous material is excluded rather than included. As you can see from this slide, there are a lot of information. This is a slide I typically receive from the professors I work with. When I ask them, are you going to cover everything on this slide? They will usually say, no, I just want to highlight a couple things. So let me show you how we are supposed to arrange this slide according to coherence principle. As you can see from this example, we only highlight 2-3 things on the screen, and then this slide is much easier for students to comprehend and process the information. Number 2, signaling principle. Research shows that people learn better when we use cues to highlight the organization of learning material. I have an example here from our IEEE course. The title is Smart City Technology, Energy Distribution. This course is designed by my colleague, Angelo Athens. Let's take a look.
The water stored in the reservoirs behind the dam possesses potential energy. Dams are constructed in such a way that water can be released at high speed. Let's take a closer look at the process. The control room responsible for the entire operation opens the gate to release the water through the penstock. When the water is passing through the penstock, it possesses kinetic energy. A turbine converts the kinetic energy of the falling water into mechanical energy. A generator converts the mechanical energy from the turbine into electrical energy. The produced electrical energy requires a transformer to maintain the energy voltage, and then the energy is supplied to the grid for
Number 3, redundancy principle. Presenting audio and identical on-screen text results in redundant information being processed by the learner. You might have noticed in the course you take, sometimes they will have the long paragraph on the screen, and then the audio directly repeat what's being written on the screen, which is not necessary. So how do you avoid doing this? Let me show you another example. What you see on the screen right now is a better way to enhance students' comprehension. We usually place an image, and then we change the long paragraph into keyword-based bullet point 1, 2, or 3. Moving on to number 4, spatial contiguity principle. We know that people learn better when corresponding words and pictures are presented near rather than far away from each other on the screen. On the right-hand side, this is a typical diagram you will see in the printing media. But according to multimedia learning principles, we prefer you to arrange that just like the one you see on the left-hand side. Number 5, temporal contiguity principle. We know that people learn better when corresponding words and pictures are presented at the same time rather than out of sync. This is another example from our IEEE Learning Library. The title of the course is What History Can Teach Us About the Present and the Future of HPC. This is also designed by Angelo. I'm going to play the video and you can see how we apply the principle here in this clip.
If you walked into a room with a supercomputer in the past, this is what you would see. The biggest item in the room would be the computer itself, depicted here. In the middle of the room, we have the operator station. On the bottom left, there's a printer, which is probably the one item that you would immediately recognize because it appears like what a printer would look like today. To the bottom right are the disks.
Before I move on to the next principle, I want to spend a few minutes to talk about how to achieve temporal contiguity using PowerPoint move transition. As you can see from our course sample earlier, when we want to achieve signaling principle or temporal contiguity principle, we use a lot of animation. And then you might be telling me that you are only using PowerPoint when you do your presentation. So I want to introduce a couple of techniques that you can use inside PowerPoint to create animation and highlights. The one you are seeing on the screen is move. You can see how each button is changing color and then lifted up when you cover that point. Here is another example of using move transition. You often have 3 photos or diagrams you want to highlight. So you can just put one in the center first. And then bring the next one in, talk about it. And then again, bring another one into the center. This arrangement can help you achieve temporal contiguity. If you want to learn more, you can look up PowerPoint Move on YouTube. Number 6, segmenting principle. We know that people learn better from a multimedia lesson if they have some control over the learning material rather than receiving everything as a continuous unit. This is an example from our IEEE course, which I helped design. The title is Digital Privacy, Principle, Regulations, and Ethics.
When dealing with ethical dilemmas, it may seem impossible to know where to start. However, we can harness the 5 workable ethical theories discussed previously to help us make our decision. Let's go through the process together. Click on each ethics category to learn how to apply it to the scenario. When you are done, click the Next button to continue. Kantian ethics asks us to consider whether an action is morally right or wrong. The act of installing a robot with facial recognition capabilities to monitor seniors without informing them is morally wrong.
In the previous example, the material is usually very lengthy, and then we want to make sure that we break them down into digestible size using segmenting principle. In this example, I'm going to show you we are doing it for a different reason. I want you to take a look first. This is a course designed by my colleague, Jill Bagley. The title is IEEE English for Technical Professionals. Let's check it out.
Read the resume excerpt to understand Bob Menendez's most recent professional background. Then click on Play Audio to listen as he describes his credentials in a way that listeners can easily understand and appreciate.
What did I do? Well, as a sensor engineer, I headed a work group that did a fair amount of work on prognostics, controls, and engine performance. We were responsible for the sensor validation on test bench, engine, and local.
In the video you just watched, you might notice that there are not many content in it, but we still choose to break it down into 2 segments because we want students to achieve the best learning result. We want them to read first the text on the screen and then listen to the audio. And after that, compare what they hear and what they read. All right, I have covered 6 principles already. I want to test your knowledge. Let's have this activity together. If you like, you can type your answer in the chat. I want you to look at the multimedia lesson here on the left-hand side, and then tell me which multimedia learning principle do you think it violates. Second question will be, the lesson can be enhanced by which multimedia learning principles? I will put a timer here for 30 seconds. Number 7, pre-training principle. People learn better from multimedia lessons when they know the names and behavior of system components. I have an example here from the course I'm currently designing, IoT Security, Malware Forensics. What you are looking at on the screen is called IoT Malware Forensics Roadmap. So in this module, the instructor is going to give more details on where you can collect information about IoT malware. There are 5 servers. You can do that. So he wants to give the overall picture first and then explain a little bit about each component before he dives into more details. And after students have an understanding about the system components, he will just focus on the 2 servers first and to give more detail about the procedure. This is how we apply pre-training principle. Number 8, modality principle. People learn better when words are presented as narration rather than as on-screen text. As you can see from the right-hand side, we have a long paragraph there. And according to modality principle, it is better for us to just do a narration like the one shown on the left-hand side to enhance students' comprehension. Number 9, multimedia principle. People learn better from words and pictures together than from words alone. Let's do a quick exercise here. I want you to read this paragraph. You have about 30 seconds, and then you can share the one-sentence summary after you read this paragraph. Okay, let's try a different way. Right now you have another 30 seconds. I want you to review these two infographics and come out with another one-sentence summary. You can share your sentence in the chat. All right, time's up. This infographics and also the previous paragraph basically convey the same information. Which one is easier for you to come out with the one-sentence summary? If your answer is the infographic, that's exactly what multimedia principle wants us to do. Number 10, personalization principle. Research shows that people learn better from multimedia lessons when words are spoken in conversational style rather than formal style. I have two examples here. On the right-hand side, this is a typical sentence you will see from a research paper or you will hear from a conference presentation. When you are teaching, we don't want you to talk like that, because it is not helpful for students to understand the message you are trying to deliver. Instead, we want you to talk like what I'm showing on the left-hand side. Talk normally like you are having a conversation with your audience. Number 11, voice principle. We know that people learn better when the narration in multimedia lesson is spoken in a friendly human voice rather than a machine voice. I think this one is pretty straightforward, and then we can all relate it to that. When you call a bank or you call a doctor's office, you always prefer to talk to a real person rather than a machine. But how about this one, an AI-generated voice and character? I will let you watch the clip and you tell me what you think.
Hi, I'm Emily, Kayla's twin. Do you enjoy her presentation on multimedia learning principles? If not, I can take over from here. Mila.
What do you think? Is Emily doing a better job than I am? You might have noticed from the code samples I played earlier in this session, in IEEE, we hire professional voiceover talent to narrate our courses. Recently, we have been approached by vendors asking us whether we want to consider using AI voice. We have not made that decision to try it yet because it's actually harder to program AI to say something you want, especially in engineering field. We have a lot of jargons and special terms. I don't know if you noticed in this video made by Emily, I couldn't get her to say wah ha 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 at the end. That's why she sounded a little bit weird. We are afraid something like that might happen if we use AI for all our engineering courses. Number 12, image principle. People do not necessarily learn better from a multimedia lesson when the speaker's image is displayed on the screen. On the left-hand side, you are seeing this talking style video, which is very common in online learning. Interestingly, to my surprise, the research is showing that talking head is not necessary to promote students' comprehension over the learning material. However, whenever I work with professors, I always encourage them to show their face in their online teaching video because it helps to increase a sense of immediacy, especially if you are teaching a semester-long course, you want to build a learning community, or if you want to be a YouTube guru of a certain topic, which means your face is part of your branding, then you definitely want to make sure that your face is showing most of the time in the video. I covered 12 principles today. That's a lot, but that's not everything. If you are interested, you can look at the book, which I included in the reference in my next slide. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. If you don't have any questions, you can think about which one of the following principles you can apply to your next presentation. Here is the reference slide I just mentioned. Thank you for attending my session today. If you have any questions later or want to connect with me, here is my contact information. Also, a special thanks to Amy, the producer, for her help to facilitate this webinar. I believe she has a couple reminders for you. So back to you, Amy.
Thank you, Kayla. At this time, we'll give everyone a moment to submit your questions via the purple Q&A icon. Okay, great. We're getting some questions in. Our first one, Kayla, is which principle do you find more difficult to implement in your course design?
That's a really good question. I think it would be the temporal contiguity principle, because a lot of times when we work with professors, their material usually are in bullet points and or with a lot of text, even when they are talking about a very complex procedure. So as an instructional designer, we need to identify opportunities to use some animation to increase comprehension and engagement. And then we need to explain it to the professors, how the animation will look like. Sometimes it's difficult for them to imagine. Therefore, I think it usually takes me some time to have this type of communication back and forth in order to come out with a good animation that achieves temporal contiguity.
Great. Here's a question about someone that enjoyed the exercise we did for the multimedia principle, but how do you get ideas for infographics?
Yes. I'm glad that you enjoy the exercise. When I create infographic, I usually go to some stock photo site to look for ideas. There is a site I usually go to, which is called milliondollargraphics.com. I think I can type that in the chat in a little bit later. But in this website, you can apply some filters, such as comparison filter, to search for infographics that focus on comparison. And then, if I remember correctly, there is also a filter for time, for process, or procedure, or for relationship, and so on. So you can basically find ideas more easily using those filters. And then you can see some samples. And after that, you got some ideas, and then you can start to create your own infographic. Let me type that in the somewhere in the platform later.
Yep, I just got that for you. Okay, here's our next question. When we're asked to plan a quick presentation, sometimes for IEEE staff or for volunteers, sometimes we use a lot of text. What principle do you think we should focus on to improve our effectiveness when we only have a short time to prepare?
That's a good question. I think that's most of the time when I receive the material with from professor. That's the situation I usually face. I will say the redundancy principle is definitely something you want to avoid, and then a lot of times the material we receive actually violate the redundancy principle. So we will try to quickly change that into keyword based. If that's a one paragraph, you shorten that to 5 to 6 keywords on the screen, and then you find an image to accompany those keywords. That's the quickest way we can turn around a PowerPoint that is with redundancy violation.
Okay, great. Here's a question about asking, which principle may enhance a real-world presentation in person during a conference?
This one will be the conversation. Let me check the slide. I think it's the one when we talk about personalization and then the voice principle. Because I do go to some in-person events, which I find out that the presenter is still talking in a presentational tone. But we actually encourage, this also happened when I work in NYU, when we invite professors to come to the studio to record their session. They will still talk like, to record their lesson, their class, their online course with us. They will still talk like they are presenting in an academic conference. And then according to research, that kind of sentence is not helping with students' comprehension. So a lot of times in the studio, I will need to stop them and then say, let's just pretend that you are talking to me. Let's try to make this lesson conversational. Believe me, it's actually harder than you think when you want to ask someone to talk more in a direct conversational tone.
Great. I think we'll close out today with one last question. Where would I go to get additional information about this topic?
The topic about the multimedia learning principle?
I think really, everything that you talked about today to learn more.
Okay. Yeah, so I include my slide deck in the resource area. Amy, is that called resource area? I think we have a resource area, right? So you can find out there's an entire book you can read about, because a lot of people actually research on this topic using some interesting experiments. So you can read about the result of that and then read about their conclusion. So there is a book on that, which is included in the reference list.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Kayla, and thank you, everyone. This concludes today's event. And as noted earlier, the on-demand link for today's event will be emailed to all registrants in approximately 2 hours. Before you leave, don't forget to complete our feedback survey via the Field Survey tool at the bottom of your screen. Thank you, and have a great day.